Excellence is involved engagement or caring deeply in something worthwhile that aligns with your values and goals. It is not robotic optimization. It's not waking up at a certain time because some influencer told you.
How would I recognize an excellent environment?
Sometimes excellence gets confused with being in an intimate conversation with a great friend. Phenomenal flow state. But you know what else is a flow state?
Brad Stulberg. Brad's an author, he's a coach.
Brad Stulberg's newest book is The Way of Excellence, and it's already drawing praise from some of the biggest names in sports and performance.
His work's been featured in the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and Time Magazine.
We are told the key to a good life is to be happy all the time. As a result, people end up chasing happiness.
I love this term called zombie burnout. How do you try to combat it in this insane internet world? How do you manage that in your own life? What's up, Brad? Welcome back to the Ready State podcast.
It is great to be back.
We are really excited about this conversation. In fact, we probably should have just recorded the whole pre-roll because there was a lot going on there.
And let me just say again, I don't have many friends who just keep making, like, hitting home runs. And I'm like, we should probably talk about that home run too. Like, come back and talk about another home run. It's pretty amazing. And I don't know if you're in our brains and in our homes, but it's really the things that you continue to write about resonate with us in our seasons of life.
Yeah, they really do.
Or I'm just mature enough now to really appreciate what you're finally talking about.
It's probably the former, but either way, I'll take the compliment. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to say too, for my part, I do feel like I'm at a phase of life where I'm doing way too many things, and maybe all of them not great. And just reading this book was such a nice reset, and I'm really gonna try to use it as my guide going into 2026. So I'm grateful to you.
Set this talk, for me, your book is The Way of Excellence, and one of the things that resonates with me right now is that we're in a time where everyone, I feel like, is an inch deep and a mile wide. Like, it's all superficial. I really can't see someone's work. I can't see the depth of their thinking. I don't know where they're coming from. I don't know what their work looks like. All I know is that it's like a veneer of sparkles. And I'm like, is there anything below that veneer? And that really is at the heart of what excellence is. And I just see people are just pretending their ways into positions, and they're not doing right by the world.
I think that's a really astute observation, and that is a driving force behind the genesis of this project. It's really meant to reclaim excellence and to get really clear about what excellence is and also what excellence isn't.
So before we dive into those questions, what is something you are doing in your own life right now that you're actually trying to do with excellence? What's going on in Brad Stulberg's life? Set us up about, like, what are you working on
now?
The areas of my life where I pursue excellence, there are three. The first is as a husband and father.
Mhm.
And I really just want to be the best that I can possibly be for my wife and for my kids. The second is in the craft room of my identity house. And for me, that craft is writing. So I want to be an excellent writer. I want to learn from the greats. I want to try to take the torch that the greats have handed to me through their work and carry it along to the next generation. And then the third big area in my life where I try to pursue excellence is as an athlete. And I'll never win an Olympic gold medal. I won't win a regional gold medal, but I can still learn so much about myself through pursuing barbell sports and overcoming challenges and trying to see where my genetic potential lies.
I love that. And just for the listeners, the specific thing you're pursuing right now, from a barbell standpoint, is deadlifting. So how's that going?
It's going well. I just had a PR earlier this year. I pulled 530 pounds, which for me is a lot. That was in
Amazing.
For
September.
anyone, that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a very happy story. That was untapered. It was in the middle of a normal training week. It was a situation where my coach was there and it was going to be a heavy single anyways. And he said, 515 moved really well. Like, let's put 530 on the bar and see what happens. And I shocked myself. And he turned to me and he said, you're going to pull 550 before the end of the year. No problem. And I haven't pulled more weight than 530 since. I missed 540 a week ago after a full taper in everything, which just goes to show that sport is finicky and performance is complex. But I'm really excited about the challenge of going back to the drawing board next year, entering a new training cycle and seeing if I can inch that number up a bit.
One of the things that jumped out at me when you talked about being curious, chasing this new thing. I'm just going to say that your training age is very old. You're a really remarkable athlete, but your sort of obsession with barbells is newer for you, not new, but newer. One of the things that you hint in there, I think, speaks to this book a little bit, in that when we are talking about limits, and when we are getting near the limits of our capacity, our attention, our abilities, you really start to see inputs and outputs very clearly. And that's very different than some of the things you can get away with when it's low speed, low psychological consequence, low stress. Like, it doesn't really matter. You're tolerant. I can deadlift 225 all day long. I don't need to warm up, blah, blah, blah. And as soon as it's heavy, as soon as there's real consequence, and we talk about this in speed load, if I really want to see how you perform, I'm going to put you under some stress. I'm going to make you move fast. And I'm going to really tell who's who and what's what. And not all practices get us to Rome. And I think that's one of the lessons that I know you take out of high performance, is that, you can eat you can have a cigarette and eat little chocolate donuts and have a great time and not really sleep and be okay. But as soon as you want to actually differentiate yourself and be excellent, you really have to start paying attention to these small details, and consistently for a long time. Am I right there?
You're 100% right. I think that the way to test a system is to put it under stress and see how the
Mm,
system operates
Hmm.
under stress. That's like systems thinking 101. And I think that's exactly what you're describing. So the system of Brad Stulberg as an athlete is put under stress when I've got 540, 530, 550 pounds on the bar, and little things that don't matter when there's half that weight on the bar suddenly start to matter. And on the one hand, you could say, well, 80-20 rule, like I'm just going to be pretty good at a bunch of things. And there's nothing wrong with that. Or you could say, this is fascinating. Like this is where the interesting stuff comes in. I've been doing this seriously for 5 years. I've gotten better. And now the next 5 pounds are going to be really hard to find. Come by. And I'm actually so excited by that because it just gets so much more interesting. I'm so much more curious to figure out what's going to happen next. And then to your earlier point, I do think that you've got to nail all the foundational habits and principles in what I call the fundamentals, the basics. And the better you get at something, the more important nailing those foundational
mm,
fundamentals are. But then there's this other interesting tension that happens with really elite performance. And by really elite performance, I don't necessarily mean world class. I mean elite for you, when you yourself are giving something
that's
your
right.
all,
Mhm.
when you've put in a lot of time and energy and effort. And that is, you get to this question about the marginal stuff. And some of the marginal stuff is actually going to make you much better. Maybe it is monitoring your macros. Maybe it is throwing in a supplement or two. Maybe it is tracking your sleep. But some of that stuff can actually get in the way because you start to focus too much on all the things around the main activity and not the main thing itself. So I think the importance of nailing the fundamentals just gets heightened. And then you have to kind of pick and choose based on your own unique circumstances and your temperament, what things to quote unquote optimize versus when to just say F it and let it rip. And that's like also such a fun part about excellence and mastery is exploring that.
So this is, I think, is a three-part question, Brad. When you use the word excellence, what do you mean? If you could just define it for us. And then also, what does it not mean? And then the third part is, why should we care? Like, why should, here I am, like 52-year-old person, like, why should chasing excellence be something that I should care about?
I love it. What a great question. All three parts. What excellence is, what I mean by excellence is involved engagement or caring deeply in something worthwhile that aligns with your values and goals. Full stop. That's what it is. So you've got to care deeply about it. You've got to focus. You have to pay attention to it. You have to give something your all. You have to commit to it. And that thing has to be worthwhile and it has to align with your values, who you want to become as a person. So, yes, I want to deadlift all the weight, but the process of trying to deadlift all the weight is also shaping me as a person. So, I better go about it in a way that aligns with my values. So, that is what excellence is. What excellence is not. It is not robotic optimization. It's not waking up at a certain time because some influencer told you. It is not giving a hype speech from a cold plunge and making sure that you put it on Instagram. It's not a 19-step routine. the goal isn't to be world class in an elaborate routine. The goal is to be a world class athlete or a world class parent or a world class leader or a world class executive or the best community member that you can be. So, insofar that routines help that goal, yes, do them. They're really important. I'm a staunch proponent of routines, but sometimes excellence gets confused with all of this elaborate kabuki that is not the real thing. Excellence is also not perfectionism. Nobody can be perfect. And by trying to be perfect, by trying to make every single day a 10 out of 10, you end up burning yourself out. Excellence is not winning at all costs. It's not sacrificing your integrity. Again, it is very values driven. Excellence is not just chasing flow. Flow states are incredible when they're pointed towards the right thing. Making love to your partner, what a great flow state. Being in the pocket of a deadlift, what a great flow state. Taking over a basketball game, incredible flow state. Being in an intimate conversation with a great friend, phenomenal flow state. But you know what else is a flow state? Scrolling TikTok and losing a sense of time. Being in a casino or getting addicted to sports gambling, those are all flow states. And I think that sometimes we chase flow and we chase these ephemeral, fleeting moments of happiness when excellence is much more concerned with long-term, lasting satisfaction. So that's what excellence is not. And then why does this matter so much right now? I think it matters for a couple of reasons. I think one is that so many people in my reporting for this book told me some version of the thing that they fear most in their own life and for the people they care about is that they kind of sink into this going through the motions, numbed out, I'm just trying to survive and I'm numbing myself out. And excellence is the antidote to that, right? When you pursue excellence, you get this feeling of aliveness and dedication and caring that makes life worth living. Another reason I think it's so important to reclaim excellence right now is what ends up happening is real, genuine, heartfelt excellence gets crowded out. Because on the one hand, you've got pseudo excellence or hustle culture greatness, all the bullshit that you see online. And people see that and then they hear excellence and they're like, that's not for me. Like, I don't want to be an Instagram influencer. It's like, no, 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 that's not what excellence is. And then you have this other extreme where people will say that life is so hard right now. Why should I even care about excellence? Like everything is so broken. I'm just going to complain. And in some circles, complaining is even like a way to get status. And listen, there's a lot to complain about. There's a lot that's broken, but nobody has a good life. Nobody tells you that it's super fulfilling and your life has meaning and texture by sitting there and complaining all the time. So real excellence lives in the middle. And the last thing that I'll say is I started this project by interviewing over 100 people that care deeply about their different pursuits. These included athletes, coaches, teachers, physicians, therapists, musicians, so on and so forth. I said, what are you doing when you're at your best? And they all told me that they're super focused on their craft. And I asked them, what's that like? And they all said it's one of the best feelings there is. People told me it is energizing. It's enlivening. It feels like the sun is shining on my back, a world-class mountain biker that y'all know told me. So, like, we all want this feeling. It's great. We admire it in others. We can create it in ourselves. And that's why I wrote the book.
So I think this is really important because I think, especially in this internet world, we're all chasing, I think, things that maybe won't bring us true satisfaction. And one of those things is this like weird idea of happiness, like we're all supposed to be happy. And I think you make an excellent point that excellence is a better pursuit than this like vague idea of happiness. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, 100%. So I think that you're right. First off, we are told by the happiness industrial complex and it is
Whoa,
real.
whoa,
Like,
whoa, whoa, whoa. We're gonna just. Did you
I love
trademark
that.
that yet? I'm trademarking it right
TM,
now.
TM.
so
Circle
we
City.
are told by the happiness industrial complex, which is a real thing, um, that the key to a good life is to be happy all the time. Uh, and as a result, people end up chasing happiness. However, happiness is like a butterfly. Like you try to grab it and it just immediately flies away. Happiness is often a byproduct of caring deeply about something and giving it your all. And it comes in these fleeting moments and then it goes. What is much more enduring is a sense of satisfaction or fulfillment. And I think that that is what so many people are after. The feeling of I showed up today and I gave a good effort on something that mattered to me. Like that's what makes it easy to fall asleep at night. Not happiness, but that. And I think about my own life and I think about the things that I find most fulfilling. And it is facing the blank page in writing a couple really good sentences after spending 3 hours trying to. It's coaching my kids' basketball team. It's showing up and being there for my wife when she really needs me. I'm not happy in any of those instances. I wouldn't describe what I'm feeling as happy. I would describe it as focused, engaged, and satisfied. And I just think like that is the target. It's not happiness. Happiness can be a byproduct. It's great. I'm not anti happiness, right? We should enjoy moments of happiness, but I think the pursuit of happiness is the wrong pursuit.
As you were talking, I was thinking about like imagine trying to apply like just being happy to your marriage and how that would just be like if that was your expectation, like I should be happy all the time in the way that you've described it, how ultimately disappointing a marriage might be. I don't know why I thought of that example, but
Yeah.
right, like
It,
obviously we have these moments of total joy and happiness together
Stoke.
and stoke, but those are fleeting, right? But what is there is this like, real feeling of commitment and shared values and, all the other things that make our marriage so satisfying. But I think if we had just pursued like happiness, right, no marriage would ever make it.
I'm so glad that you used the marriage as an example because another way to think about it is what you and Kelly have, because I know you both well and you're incredible and your marriage is incredible, is you have intimacy, connection.
Yeah.
Okay. I use the word intimacy in the book to say that we hear intimacy and we think about it just in a romantic context, but you can also have intimacy with a craft. So you can have intimacy as an athlete with your sport. You can have intimacy as a coach with your team. You can have intimacy as a leader with your leadership practice. And it's that feeling of intimacy, of deep connection, of, hey, there are going to be obstacles and challenges in days when I don't feel like doing this, but I'm going to commit to it and I'm going to get as close as I can to this thing and remain endlessly curious about it. Like that is what equates to a good textured life. It's not chasing happiness. There's this famous philosophy experiment that just immediately throws this question into relief that I love. I'll go over it real quick. And the hypothetical says that you have two choices. One is I could put you in a tube for the rest of your life, but you would not know that you're in a tube. And within the tube, you would take these drugs that one, make you forget that you're in a tube, and two, you would feel euphoric, as happy as can be all the time. And you'd be in this tube, you wouldn't know you're in the tube, and then you'd die. Or you could continue with the rest of your life, all of its problems, all of its challenges, all of the heartbreak, all the messiness. Almost nobody chooses the tube. Yet, as I said in opening, increasingly, like the world is becoming the tube. Like we're just told to like numb ourselves out and kind of go with the flow on an algorithmic conveyor belt to freaking nowhere. And I just don't like that can't be where we go individually. That can't be where we go as communities.
You are my brain is spinning on things to talk about and experiences I've had. We worked with Team Sky uh back when, that was the British cycling sort of excellence
Sure.
team, peak Bradley Wiggins. And one of their performance physios, Philbert, genius, bike fitter, superstar, they went through this phase called aggregation of marginal gains, where they became obsessed with every small detail. Like we'll put alcohol on the tires and it'll soften the rubber a little bit. And they did that. And I use that example. They did that towards 100 things, 200 things, 300 things, and they lost the track. And I do see very much they had a terrible season. The thing fell apart. And I see what you kind of hinted at earlier, that where a lot of people are doing this performative kabuki, which is just a great phrase that you used, is that, we're if I take this pill, if I do this thing, if I track this metric, it will fulfill me or lead to some transcendent state where things, happen. I am right now the person I am most obsessed with, and if you're out there listening, it's not you, Juliet. It's Emma Hayes, who's the women's national soccer team coach for the United States. And I consume all Emma Hayes things because her ability to get people together to do extraordinary things is one of the most world-class things I have ever seen. And I am obsessed with that piece of it now because as we spent the last 20 years working on performance and all these small variables and techniques and mechanics, that was great because it was a tool set that we needed. But the real thing is this person with us. The real thing is interacting in a way that, that allows me to have these kind of peak moments or this deep satisfaction in the process. And I'm realizing that I need to really continue to educate myself on that and immerse myself in those situations where we're developing practices and in living in a way that feels excellent. And I am looking around and I'm like, whoa, that's excellence. It's so clear to see.
This episode of the Ready State podcast is brought to you by Vitality Blueprint. And Vitality is a blood work platform built for high performers by our friends Dr. Andy Galpin and Dan Garner.
Yeah, I want to just highlight that for a moment. We have brilliant friends who've been in the high performance space for a long time doing this. Our dream always is to transmute the lessons we learned in high performance to those like middle-aged mountain biker dads, dudes like me who want to be less gross. This I am so excited about because you get access to their brains and protocols. And that's the difference between Vitality and just getting your blood done.
Yeah, I mean, they use this really cool framework where they investigate, which is what to test, and they're really careful and thoughtful about that. They interpret it for you, which is sort of like, what does it mean? What do all these results mean? But then I think maybe the coolest thing about this is that they actually prescribe interventions and programs, like how to actually do something about all these results you get.
Pharmaceuticals, only supplements and lifestyle interventions.
Yeah, and I think that that's really unique in a crowded space where there are a lot of companies offering blood work. They really take it to the next level. And so you don't just have this sort of like 2D data that you look at and think, oh, okay, you know, my cholesterol's in the red or whatever. You actually can do something about it.
And, you know, what I love is if you've already got blood work, you can upload it to there and use their platform to interpret what you already have.
Yeah.
So you can get a baseline, like back baseline, but, you know, a couple times a year. And I feel like it's really reasonable to see what's going on under the hood. There is not a single athlete we work with who does not do this. I want to stress that. We need to understand what the physiologic limitations are to your performance, and sometimes it's micronutrients, sometimes it's hormonal. We need to see what's going on. Inputs and outputs.
Yeah, this is really important.
If you want to learn more, go to vitalityblueprint.com/TRS and use code TRS for $50 off any Vitality plan.
I love that example. And I think that what makes that example so incredible is also the main things, as far as I know, it's about the culture and the community. It's about the people that make up that organization and that make up that team. And it's about the common mission. And then it's just about the consistency of like showing up day in and day out and doing the work. And do all the accoutrements on the side play a part? Do they matter? Absolutely. But like the main things are the main things. And you've got to keep the main things the main things. It sounds really cliche, but it's true. And I think that what happens is so often people focus on the last 1% because it's like a bright and shiny object and it's sexy. And they focus more on the last 1% than the first 99%. And in order to be excellent, you got to get that pyramid right. You got to focus on the first 99% and only then mess around with some of these things at the outer edges that may or may not work.
So when I think about the word excellence and what's going on present day, and, you know, obviously this episode is coming out at the end of January, but I have been obsessed, and we talked about it in the pre-roll, with the newly minted Heisman Trophy winner Fernando Mendoza. And I just am obsessed with his story of being like a 2-star recruit and like the 2,500th, you know, pick. I love that he went to my alma mater, Cal, and somehow graduated in 3 years. Go Bears! But I just somehow, for me, reading your book around the time that his story has just exploded on the internet and the news, is just such a cool example of excellence. What do you think about him? Do you agree? I don't know. What's your take on him?
I love Mendoza, and I love him because he cares so deeply about his craft, in his case being the best football player he can be, the best quarterback he could be, and because he's unabashedly himself. So this guy cries. He's like super expressive in interviews. He's constantly thanking others effusively in a way that many keyboard warriors have called like cringe or uncool. He brags about how he calls his mom multiple times a day. And all these people are like, oh, like he's kind of a tool, or he's nerdy, or he's not cool. But guess what? Like, you don't win the Heisman Trophy for being the coolest. You win the Heisman Trophy for being the best at football. And in order to be the best at football, in order to be the best at anything, you you have to be yourself. Like, you can't waste time and energy worrying about what other people think or trying to mimic someone else's path. You have to know who you are, be okay with who you are, and then take all your tools to bear and put them to the test. And the point isn't that, like, we should all try to be like Mendoza, because most of our temperaments aren't like his. The point is that, like, we got to stop wasting so much time and energy worrying about what other people think and mimicking other people, and instead, like, really be ourselves. Something that's interesting in the reporting for this book, what I realized in so many great performers, and this is domain non-specific, again, in athletes and artists and entrepreneurs and creatives, is at a certain point, you just gain this confidence in yourself, and, like, you can be yourself and go all the way. And such a trap is saying, "Oh, I saw how that coach did things, so I'm going to model myself after that coach." And it's great to have role models. We need role models. But if you don't bring your own personal flavor to that, or worse, you try to shut down your own personal flavor because you think somehow it's not cool or you're scared that you might fail, you're never going to be as good as you could be.
Love it.
Um, I want to put that incredible quarterback, and transparently, everyone, I had been and worked with the University of Indiana football team before the current coach. And I've also been there with the current coach because Cal plays there. The women's head water polo coach, Taylor McInerney, is a friend of ours, an extraordinary person. Her husband works on that staff. I've been there and met Kurt Signetti, the head coach. Um, when you take an exceptional person and drop them into an exceptional environment, it really is a win-win-win. It's like we used to call it effortless effort. There was a speed that we could make the boat go in slalom where it took, we knew it was going to work. And then to make it go 5% harder, it took 10 at times the effort. We had to like work. So we wanted to find the speed where effortless effort. And that excellence piece, when you're in that environment, it feels like it's effortless effort. Like you're like, hey, I can do this and I can do it. How would I recognize an excellent environment? Because I think as people are thinking about that, they may be hearing this conversation being like, is my work excellent? Do I work around excellent people? How would I know? Because it is different, but clearly the culture at University of Indiana right now is one of excellence, and it's not performative excellence. It's real excellence.
I love that, Kelly. I actually think this is so simple, but simple does not mean easy. So, how do you recognize an excellent environment? Does that culture, or does the leader of that culture, do they know their values? Can they define those values really clearly? And then are the behaviors that are rewarded in alignment with those values? Those three things. Do you know your values? Can you define them clearly? And are the behaviors that get rewarded in alignment with those values? And when you have those three things, the culture just blossoms. Why? Because it is the best selection bias criteria. You're not going to have people come into that program that don't hold the same values as you, because it's so clear. But these are the things we value. And these aren't just inspirational sayings on a wall. This is what we actually value. Let's contrast that with my alma mater and where I'm on faculty, University of Michigan. The Michigan man, we value integrity and character. And they have a coach that is having an affair and paying off a staffer, allegedly, and who was recently arraigned and arrested because of his behaviors. That's a defunct culture. That's because the values, clearly, they don't mean anything. They're just words on a wall. They're certainly not being practiced. In Michigan's football program, over the last couple of years, hasn't been the best. And even when they were the best, there were a lot of values issue there. Contrast that with what you're saying about Indiana, where the values are clear and they're practiced, and then you get the kind of player that wants to buy into those values. And then the most discouraging thing for an athlete, and I've heard this from current members of the Michigan football team, is to buy into the values and to think that's what's actually happening. And then they get there and they're like, oh, this is just a facade. Like, this isn't happening.
Right.
No one's going to give you effort. They're going to feel stuck and trapped and misled. But if you actually practice those awesome values that you espouse, that is what makes a culture great. And I think this sounds great and it sounds easy, but it's not, because it takes a lot of time and reflection to get really clear on what do you value, how do you practice them. And then when the going gets tough, when you put the system under stress, is the system actually going to show up and act in alignment with those values, or are they just going to be words on a poster?
Really quickly on this subject, we saw Signetti interviewed on 60 Minutes this weekend, and the interviewer was like, "What is the secret sauce?" And I love that he just said, "There isn't one. It's the fundamentals," right? Which I just was like, I love that. So,
Let me
yeah,
jump in since we're sort of taught in this football world. At Indiana, one of the things they had on the wall is they would have an offensive player of the week, defensive player of the week, special teams player of the week. And under the old system, if the team didn't win, there was no one selected for the effort. And Coach Signetti came in and was like, "This is ridiculous." And so
yeah,
whether we win or lose, there's always an offense because it was the effort that was rewarded, not the outcome. And I want to just point out that
So
small
important.
detail
yeah.
because I'd walked in there before and I'd be like, "Hey, this week doesn't have anyone up here," and they're like, "Yeah, we lost that week," and I was like, "You lost this week, and there's no one." And what you see is the only thing we value is outcome, not process, not effort. And just that signaling of them changing that one piece of saying, "Hey, yeah, we lost." And of course they hadn't lost much in the last 2 years, but we lost and it doesn't matter because we still reward the effort and that person giving their best. I think that really says it because we have to divorce this excellence from only the win because the win can't be
Mhm.
the thing. It
Yeah.
cannot. It's too, especially in these elite sports, it is so hard to win. And I'll just point at our friends at the Niners right now, beset by injuries and still figuring out ways to belong, to lead, to it's really remarkable to see what a culture does, even when it's handed less than ideal situations.
It's such a great example, because I don't know what the values were, but let's say that even 4 or 5 years ago, the value at Indiana was focus on the process. It's a really like cliche thing to say in sport, and for good reason. You ought to focus on the process. But if you're telling everyone that we're a program that values the process and we focus on the process, but then you only have a player of the week after a win, that's not that's not values aligned. Like that's discordant. So
Yeah.
you actually have to do these things. And on the notion of process, it's not to say that outcomes don't matter. Like outcomes matter. There's a reason that we have a scoreboard. It's normal to want to win. You should want to win. Often outcomes have financial implications or they open you up to more opportunities. Um, the point of sport in elite most things, business, even in the arts, like I want my book to sell. We're not all going to hold hands and just sing kumbaya and like we're going to accept losses, but it's to acknowledge that the best chance that you have to get the win is by focusing on the process and to acknowledge what you just said that 9 times out of 10 in an elite environment, you're going to do everything right and still not get the win just because it's so freaking hard at the pointy end of the stick. But you
Mhm.
got to reward that process because that's what keeps you coming back and you stay in the arena long enough and eventually things fall into place. I think in my hometown football team, the Detroit Lions, um, had everything fall into place 2 years ago. And then your team, the Niners, we played like 8 bad minutes of football and it didn't go our way. Now, should we not celebrate that season because of 8 minutes? No, that's the dumbest thing ever. But back to how hard it is, I don't think the Lions are going to win a Super Bowl anytime soon. I hope I'm wrong because it's just so hard.
Mhm.
And if you can't love the process and enjoy the process, you're never going to last because when you lose, and fail, which is inevitable if you're trying something really hard, you're going to quit. So like it's not process over outcomes, it's process and outcomes.
Yeah. You
And it's
gotta like it.
by focusing on the process, you give yourself the best chance at the outcome that you care so deeply about and that you want.
So switching directions a little bit here, Brad, I love this term that you introduced in the book called zombie burnout.
Yeah.
And it somehow just kind of jumped out at the page off the page at me when I read it, and it just made intuitive sense. But can you talk about what that is, and sort of how do you try to combat it in this insane internet world? I think the other just sub point here is we all are talking, in the wake of Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, about like kids on their phones. But I think we adults are equally, if not more, connected and on our phones. Sometimes under the guises that we're like working or whatever it is we're doing. But talk about zombie burnout and how you manage it, or think we can try to deal with it in this crazy internet world.
First off, our phones are like adult pacifiers. So whenever we're feeling any kind of discomfort, we need the pacifier. So we scroll on our phone. That's all it is. It's an adult pacifier. And much like at some point you got to wean a baby off a pacifier, like we got to wean ourselves off the adult pacifier. We have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. having our own thoughts, being a little bit bored. Like these are not problems to solve. These are parts of the human experience. How this relates to zombie burnout. Zombie burnout is a kind of burnout where it's not that you're burnt out from doing too much. It's that you're burnt out from not doing enough of things that actually light you up. So it's this numbed out feeling of going through the motions, of kind of hitching a ride on the algorithm if you're spending a lot of time on the internet and going wherever it takes you. And you finish the day and you're both really exhausted, but also really restless at the same time. And the reason for that is you're just drained from doing nothing meaningful. And you can have two people that put in the same number of hours of work in a day or a week or a month. And one of those people can burn out and the other one could be flourishing. And the only difference is the one that's flourishing actually finds what they're doing invigorating and meaningful. And so much of how we spend our days is on this algorithmic conveyor belt to nowhere. Sometimes it's our own doing. It's scrolling. It's getting like watching all these short form videos nonstop. It's getting hooked up in the gossip and rage machine. Other times it's in a work setting where we're just responding to like short emails and texting all day. And like we're never really doing any deep focus work, which we know is so gratifying and fulfilling. So that's zombie burnout. How does it connect to our phones? How do we get out of it? I think it's really simple. I think you have to identify periods of time where you want to engage in something in an intimate way, where you want to give something your all. And then you have to leave all the devices that can possibly get in the way and distract you. You have to leave them behind or remove them. So again, simple, not easy. What does this look like? It looks like putting your phone in the basement, putting it in your attic for 2 hours, and then sitting down to write. If you are a coach, it looks like, hey, when we enter the clubhouse or when we enter the training facility, here's a little lockbox that everybody drops their phones in because we care deeply about pursuing excellence in this sport. And we all know, like even the most addicted to their phones people, they know that their phone is distracting them and making them kind of feel like a zombie. So you just say, like, you don't want to feel like a zombie. Yeah, it's going to be hard to take the pacifier out, but we've got to take it out. And I think like it's another one of these practices that is so straightforward, but that doesn't make it easy, which is identify the times and places where you want to give your all to something, figure out the things that are distractions, and remove the distractions.
And how do you manage that in your own life, especially as you are trying to market a book?
Yeah.
And then also, I know you're coaching your kids' soccer teams. You have kids, and maybe this is just like a mom excuse, but there are times when like Kelly leaves his phone behind, and I think to myself, like, must be nice because I have my phone in case the kids need something. Um, and so, how do you manage that in this sort of universe where it's like there's this expectation that you're reachable at all times, even by your own kids, and you're coaching teams, and there's communication around that. Like, how do you manage this? At this time, especially when you're marketing a book and you have to probably be online way more than normal. This episode of the Ready State podcast is brought to you by LMNT.
Dude, LMNT is so cool. There's a couple reasons. Number one, we are getting real good at fueling performance with carbohydrate. And I really like separating eating whole foods from hydration and making sure we're getting enough electrolytes. And look, if you're just a middle-aged dad walking around, yeah, have an LMNT. It's fantastic. I think you'll be entertained. But if you're going hard and you're not replacing essential salts, magnesium, potassium, you're going to feel like crap.
Or if you're someone who's doing a ton of sauning
right.
or like very long
No one's
workouts.
doing that these days.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other place that we don't talk about very much that we use LMNT all the time is on these long bike rides we're doing. I mean, we really are always out on the weekend doing these 2 or 3 hour rides, and neither one of us is that great at constantly eating enough carbohydrates and snacks throughout those long rides.
We eat a whole bar. Like we eat like food, like things.
Right.
And then our water is element laced.
Yeah.
Look, this LMNT, you kids, it is.
You kids out there.
It has found its way into all aspects of my practice. We're trying to have healthy tissues. We're trying to make sure that people are sorted on salt. Our athletes have an LMNT before huge game days. They wake up in the morning. We just make sure that we're bolusing with that thing.
Yeah, and they also just came out with these awesome, amazing 12-ounce sparkling element cans
It's the
with a
perfect
few
amount.
new flavors like pineapple salt. They have had the black cherry for a while in the larger cans, but they have them also in these small cans.
What do you like the black cherry?
I really like the black cherry. It's like my favorite flavor.
Sometimes I do feel like it's
Yeah.
like Edward 40 hands. We're holding those huge,
Yeah,
like
yeah, the
there's
big,
definitely a
huge
time I
cans.
need that one, but
Yeah.
what I really like about the small can is that it's sort of the right amount.
Yeah,
And again,
it's so tasty.
I challenge you, if you're feeling like you want a little bump, take a little bump
Yeah.
in the afternoon, have a salt bump instead of a caffeine.
Yeah, and it's a little sodium, potassium, magnesium, and you just feel way better than if you have candy or a cappuccino at 4 o'clock.
I mean, the other one's more fun, but I guarantee you this works better.
True fact.
Right now, if you order through our link, you can get a free sample pack of LMNT's most popular drink mix flavors. And of course, if you want to party in your mouth, sparkling, go to drinklmnt.com/TRS.
We literally drink it every day.
Hey, if you're enjoying the show, make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. That way you won't miss any of the new episodes we drop. Plus, it really helps other people find the show. So hit that follow button now, and let's get back to it.
Yeah, I think that you can't let perfect be the enemy of good. So I think the coaching example is great. There's all kinds of research that shows that just having a phone in your pocket, even if it's not turned on, so your phone is off, detracts from whatever you're doing, because we've just gotten so habituated to the feeling of having a phone in our pocket that it reminds us of all the things that could be happening in the world. This is why you get phantom vibrations. Like your nervous system is on such alert for that thing to ring. So on the one hand, I'd love to leave my phone completely behind. On the other hand, I live in the modern world, and my 8U basketball team has a text thread with all the parents saying, Lincoln's out, he's got the flu, Ronan's got the stomach bug, Wyatt's going to be 5 minutes late. I forgot, what time does the game start at? So I need my phone to be able to respond to them. However, once I'm in the gym and I count and I know we have at least 5 players who are there, so we've got enough to field a team, I give my phone to my wife who's in the stands. I don't want it in my pocket during that game because in that 90 minutes, I want to lock in and be fully there. And there's a reason that 90 minutes is so fulfilling. It's not just because I love coaching young kids. It's because I also don't have my phone in my pocket. When it's time for family dinners, same thing. The phone, it goes in a completely different area of the house. It's not charging on the island in the kitchen where I can see it out of the corner of my eye. It's completely gone. Something else that I did for a long time is I had a flip phone. And the flip phone is what you could carry, Juliet, or Kelly could carry, that your daughters have your flip phone number. So you have the peace of mind knowing that if there's an emergency or if they need to contact you, they can call you on your flip phone, but you're not going to have access to the internet. You're not going to be able to text because the older the flip phones are, the more you have to like hit number 3 6 times to get
Yeah,
to
no
the
one's
letter
got time
D.
for that.
No one's got time for that. You're not going to text, but you still have that layer of comfort.
That's
Something
T9,
else,
everybody.
yeah, right. That's it. T9. Something else that I do that I think is really important is not to have the phone in the bedroom. So sleep is really important, and I don't want to have this like perpetual distraction, news arousing device on my nightstand. So the phone gets charged downstairs on a different floor in a completely different room. So it's just, again, it's figuring out those moments where you want to lock in and be present and then not having the phone with you. Before big workouts, I don't even bring the phone into the gym. I just put it in my glove box. A lot of people, I don't know exactly how you all train or how you track your training, but like part of the technology is great. My phone has an app on it called True Coach. And in True Coach, I get all my workouts. There's examples. I can log my sets and reps. So for some workouts, I'm just doing that in real time. But for key workouts or just on a day when I feel like I've got zombie burnout because I've been on the internet all day, that shit stays in the glove box of my car and I bring in a notebook and I log everything in my little notebook. And then I take 4 minutes. It's all it takes, 4 minutes after the workout to log it in my phone so that my coach can see what I did.
I love it. Okay, turning directions again. I see that you are very influenced by the book Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, which Kelly and I also both read as undergrads and loved, but I don't think either one of us have reread it. I noticed on Instagram you just recently reread it. And I think that it was influential in writing this book. So tell us a little bit about why do you love that book, and how does it relate to the pursuit of excellence?
I love that book so much. So it's a very dense book. It's not for everyone is the first thing I'll say, but it was definitely for me. So Robert Pirsig, the book's author, at the center of that book is this term quality. And he describes quality as an event that occurs when a subject or an actor cares so deeply about their act or their object that it becomes hard to separate the two. So this is the craftsperson that cares just so deeply about his or her craft that you can no longer separate the carpenter from the table or the woodworker from the bench. It's just all one act. This is the basketball player that is no longer playing basketball. Basketball is just happening. Like, you are so intimate with what you're doing. You are so in the pocket. You are in such a groove that you get this quality. And what Persig said is that the more that something has quality, the better it makes us feel and the more it contributes to the world. Persig, in his later writing, started to link quality to excellence. And unfortunately, he passed away while he was working on a book called On Quality, which was only published after he died. And On Quality has so many of these obscure journal entries that he hadn't ever published before when he was alive. And you can see in his train of thought, he's linking quality to excellence. And I came across this book On Quality. It was actually published when I was midway working through this book. And that's what made me realize that, like, what I call intimacy, he calls quality. And we're all pointing at the same thing. Like, a good life is one that has quality, that has intimacy, not just with other people, but with the things that you care about. So that book has been enormously influential on me. I've read it probably 10 times now, and each time I read it, I get something new about it. It also raises to real, like, I'm not saying this right. Let me say this again. It also raises some real questions about trade-offs. So I have a young child now, and in Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, the narrator and the author is on a motorcycle trip with his kid, and he's a terrible father. He's just like an asshole. He's not present for his kid at all. And the reason for that is he's so obsessed with this idea of quality and with trying to figure out what it means and how to communicate it, that he's not having a quality experience with his own kid. And I think that is a really important lesson. And that teaches us a lot too, that when we get really wrapped up in something, there can be enormous costs. And if we're not careful of those costs, we might not even be practicing what we're preaching. So by no means is Robert Persig, like, up on a pedestal as a perfect person, but I think he had a great idea, and that idea has really shaped my philosophy of life, and in many ways is the inspiration behind this book.
I love it. You also say that some of, like, our greatest philosophers, like Tolstoy and others, actually, really sort of at the core of their work, pursued excellence as a virtue, and that's sort of like fallen out of favor now as a thing. Why do you think that is just this through line through so many writers and philosophers, but today it doesn't seem to be a thing?
I think it's a through line because I think it's the meaning of life. Like, I mean, that's why I wrote this book. Like, I really do. I think the meaning of life is to care deeply about things that matter to you and give them your all. Like, that's it.
We
Love it.
we were in New York, and there was a cool store, and it had a pennant. And remember that?
yeah, we took
obsessed
a
with
photo of
pennant, and all the pennant said was "Give a damn."
Are you kidding? I have that
Yeah.
pennant. I have that pennant behind my head right now.
No way. Are you serious?
That pennant hangs above my writing desk.
We actually talked about it, and we're like, why didn't we buy that? Like,
damn.
we've talked about it so much since then.
and I feel like, it's interesting. I'll talk about
You can get it from Oxford Pennant. I can send you the link. So truly,
done.
Okay, we
right-
want
right
one. Yes.
right above where I write, I have that pennant, and every day I sit down to write. It's like a reminder, like, this. I'm blessed to
It's
be able
that
to
simple.
do this.
Just
Like,
just
give a damn.
Give a damn.
A damn. we we have this little Halloween party, this little bash that we put on. We have a DJ in our garage, and I say little with quotation marks. It's an event. We have
It's a banger.
2,000 or 3,000 people come to our street. We have that street, but every year we put on a huge. Everyone's involved. Lisa, our producer, is like a master crafts person. Like we put her all. She's shaking her head, but it's true. You've seen the Barbie box on the internet. You know what I'm talking about. But we go all in on a theme, on costumes, on the feeling, and people are so surprised. They're like, "Who did you work in movies or TV?"
Well, yeah, and just to interrupt you, people have come up to us and said, "Oh, well, now that your kids are older, are you guys going to stop doing this?" And we're like, "Yeah, no, we don't do it for them."
And we just we start thinking about a process. We have the kind of, and everyone is in, and people are so surprised that we just give such a shit, and for this one day, and and send it, and we just give a damn. And I try to remind people, I'm like, you can do this too. You could do this at your house. But people have lost that feeling of just sort of really going ham and really caring. And I tell you, I am sort of drawn to people. I'm like, oh, there's some obsession here. Then I'm real interested in that obsession. Like, I feel like that's a rubric or a trick or a hack where you can see someone who's obsessed and is doing something. And that for me is interesting. That's where I want to follow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And to answer Juliet's question, and also, Kelly, this gets at what you're saying. I think the reason that is more rare is twofold. I think I alluded to this earlier, but excellence has been appropriated by marketing grifters that say that excellence is having, a certain skincare routine. Or like, that's not excellent. And there's nothing wrong. Like, I moisturize. I think it's great. I think more men should moisturize. But like, stop using the word excellence. That's not excellent. That's putting moisturizer on my face. I think that like, I know that I'm often hard on the cold plunge, and I think cold plunge has real benefits. But like, getting in a cold plunge is not excellent. It might teach you something about doing a hard thing or discipline. You might find it exhilarating, but like, that's not excellent. Like, that's not the thing. So I think excellence has been appropriated by marketers on one end of the pendulum. And then on the other end of the pendulum, I think that somehow people have gotten so scared of failure that they would rather not care than care and potentially fail. So we all can remember, think back to high school, Kelly, Juliet, there was probably a kid or a bunch of kids who were the quote unquote popular kids. Those kids never tried in gym class. They always sat in the back row. They were too cool to play an instrument in the band. They weren't too cool. They were just scared and insecure. The reason they didn't try, because they didn't want to fail a test. The reason they never participated in gym class is because they were scared that they weren't going to be the best athlete. So instead of giving a damn and caring, they protected their fragile little egos by not trying. And they said that that was cool. And so many adults have yet to outgrow this tendency. Like, it is cool to care. And we need to reclaim that.
You feel like that was true at PG, Lisa?
Oh my God. Point. Okay, so
I mean, I can name the kid. I doubt he's listening to this podcast. I'm not going to say his last name. Like, there's a kid named Jared, and he's like the coolest kid. Like,
of course, he was Jared.
He had the Jankos, he had the baggy jeans, and these are like elder millennial baggy jeans, not the actual cool hip baggy jeans that all the kids are wearing. He had the earring. He's like the first kid to drink beer, and dude would never try. And I can just remember thinking, like, I wish you try in gym, because like, I'm gonna freaking pound you. And like, oh, you think you're cool? You're getting C's? Like, you're lame as shit. And I just think like, it's that attitude of like, I'm too cool to try. It's like, no, you're just scared. And trying hard and giving a damn, like, it is scary, because eventually you're going to fail, and it sucks. It hurts to fail. It hurts to own something. It hurts to set a big goal and then not guarantee that you're going to get it. But that's just the price to pay for having like a textured life. And that's at the core of excellence. That's why all these philosophers have pointed toward this thing. And that's why I think like we need to reclaim it.
So you mentioned goals, and you have a whole chapter about how to set them so that you might actually meet them. A lot of people have heard of like the SMART goals framework. You say it's too narrow. And right now this episode's coming out in January, which is a time I think a lot of people reflect and think about their goals for the year, often health goals in particular, but many overarching goals. What is your recommendation for people, especially who are sort of moved by this idea, maybe think they've gotten away from the pursuit of excellence and want to set some goals around this? Like, what is your philosophy recommendation? Because one of the things I love so much about the work you do is that you're just such a practical thinker as well. And I think it would be really helpful for people to get your advice on that.
Okay, great. So the way that I think about goal setting, and all of this is in the book with even like an exercise in the appendix for people that want to key in on this particular part of excellence. So the first thing that I'll say is that goals are very important. Like, they give us a peak to shoot for. And if you don't have a peak, then you don't know where you're going. However, it's really important that you pick the right mountain to climb, because you spend 99.999% of your time on the mountain. So the first part about goal setting goes back to your values. Like, what do you actually value? What do you care about in life? And do the goals that you set, do they allow you to practice your values? Like, do they align with your values? And you should not go after a goal because you think accomplishing it is going to make you a happy person. Like the
Mhm.
spoiler alert here is it's not. What's going to make you a happy person is the process of pursuing it. So that better align with your values. That's the first thing I'll say. The second thing I'll say is once you set the goal, it's so important to figure out the discrete steps that are necessary to achieve that goal that are within your control. And then to mostly forget about the big goal and just focus on executing those steps instead. Again, back to the metaphor of a mountain. You could sit there and stare up at the peak, but you're never going to make it staring up at the peak because you're going to trip over your own feet. Like in order to get to the peak of a mountain, you have to dig where your feet are. The bigger the goal, the smaller the steps. That's something that a mutual friend, Callie Humphreys, who's one of the winningest Winter Olympians, 3-time gold medalist in the bobsled, that's what she told me. I talked to her about how she thinks about an Olympic cycle. And she's like, an Olympic cycle is every 4 years, but I break that baby down to 2-year increments, to 1-year increments, to quarters, to months, to days, to workouts. So how do I achieve my goal of winning an Olympic gold medal? Is I know exactly what I need to do in today's workout. So the bigger the goal, the smaller the steps. And then to your point about SMART, it's a super well-known framework. And it's not that it doesn't work. I think in some instances it works, and then in some instances it gets in the way. So SMART says that goals should be specific, measurable, actionable, relatable, and timely. So a SMART goal would say, I want to deadlift 405 pounds within the next 6 months. Okay. And for deadlifting 405 pounds, from taking your deadlift to 365 to 405, that might be a great goal because like it's a pretty predictable path to get there for a lot of people. However, once your deadlift's at 515 pounds, it's so much less predictable. Progress is so much less linear. So for me to say my SMART goal is to deadlift 550 pounds in the next 6 months, I'm just setting myself up to fail. And I'm going to end up forcing the issue and probably getting hurt because I don't know if I'm ever going to deadlift 550 pounds. Maybe I'll have a breakthrough. Maybe I won't. A better goal is to say, I'm going to deadlift as much as possible. And here's the process I'm going to take to explore that. So I think SMART goals are really beneficial for beginners and for people who are intermediate. I think once you start shifting from intermediate to advanced, they can get a little bit too narrow.
Mhm.
Like, they can kind of pigeonhole you into thinking that you need this certain result by this time. And again, if you're a beginner, that's an incredible accountability lever. But if you're already pretty good at what you do, you probably don't need that accountability. You probably actually need some more flexibility to evolve and change as you go. But I think the biggest thing to take away is the bigger the goal, the smaller the steps. So yes, set that big goal, know what mountain you're climbing, make sure it aligns with your values, and then break it down into these small incremental steps that you can focus on having success in today, tomorrow, this week, versus thinking about the whole year.
I love it. I'm going to eat way more cookies this year. I can't wait to see. I'm so curious how many.
You got to
cookies
make
I eat.
it. You got to make it a SMART goal. How many cookies are you
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
eat?
no, no,
You know,
no.
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
going to eat.
Open-ended. I'm just
You're
going
going
to
to eat
blown
12
away.
12 cookies every 6 days.
Ooh, I could do that. One of the things that one of my favorite memes is like, it's like a cat with a big gold grill, and it's like the dentist says, hey, I see you've been grinding in your sleep, and he's like, thanks, dog, appreciate you noticing, and grinding your teeth and grinding. There's this idea that like you never get to take your foot off the gas, and
Yeah.
I find that exhausting.
Yeah.
We know from our friends who write about flow state and Kotler that after there's a refractory period, there's a down period after these big efforts, big things, and we have to recognize and respect that need to just unplug for a second. And it can't just be
Yeah, recover.
recover. I think that's the truth. You argue about excellence requiring rest and renewal. I feel like that feels true. But will you talk a little bit more about that? Because I feel like that's missed here, that we're never really, we like to say you're either on the gas or you need to be on the brakes. But most people are just sort of idling and they're not really on the brakes.
Yeah. If you never go easy, you can never go hard, and you kind of get stuck in the murky middle. Stress plus rest equals growth. Stimulus plus recovery equals adaptation.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Experience plus reflection equals learning. Like these are timeless truths of how a body grows, but they're also timeless truths of how you grow your emotional capacity, your cognitive capacity, your creativity. It's how organizations grow. It's how relationships grow. You take on challenges and then you need time to process those challenges. And then you take on even greater challenges. And I think that the trap that some people run into is they think that rest, recovery, renewal, whatever you want to call it, they think it's separate from the work, or something that they do is a sacrifice to the work, when in fact it's an integral part of the work. So if you want to be good at something over a long period of time, you need to get really good at the stress part of the equation. You need to grind those teeth. You need to work really hard. And you need to also get good at the rest and recovery part of the equation so that you adapt to the stress, so that you grow instead of just burning yourself out and exhausting yourself. And for type A driven pushers, the rest is always the hardest part, both on a micro scale and on a macro scale. So a macro scale might be taking 1 day a week where you truly don't do anything stressful, right? It's just a rest day, or taking a vacation. But on a micro scale, it's hard. I mean, I know this myself. There was a day, and the irony is I was working on this chapter of the book where there was just a problem I wanted to solve on the page. And it was like right at the tip of my tongue, or I guess in this case, because I'm not speaking, I'm writing, like right at the edge of my brain. And I was so close to solving it and I just couldn't. And I told myself I was going to write until 10:30 a.m. and then go to the gym. And 11 a.m. rolled around and I was still trying to solve this problem. 11:15 rolled around and I said, all right, I'm working on a chapter on renewal. Like, I need to practice what I preach. It was physically painful. Every cell in my body resisted stepping away from the computer and driving to the gym. I called one of my good friends, Clay, like an addict, like truly like a work addict. And I'm like, Clay, I'm doing something that's really hard for me right now. I'm desperately like want to be solving this problem in the book, but I'm driving to the gym. I think the quality of my workout's going to suck, but like, I know I need to step away from the manuscript. And when I got to the gym and I had something else to focus on, the workout, I eased into it. And on the way home from the gym, the manuscript was the farthest thing from my mind. And guess what happened as I'm walking into the door? I have this aha insight where I solved the problem I was trying to solve. And that is such a common experience. So it can be really hard to step away from work that we identify with. But if we don't, eventually our progress is going to stall. So we have to cycle between hard work and rest.
This episode of the Ready State podcast is brought to you by Momentous. And we know that January is the month where many people are kind of focused or refocused on improving their health. And what can often be a part of that is this sort of insane and crazy world that is supplements. Like, what do I take? How do I know what to take? And one of the reasons that we love working with Momentous is that their sort of company creed is this idea of the Momentous standard. And one of the things that I love is that, you know, someone pointed out to us that supplements are generally considered like a low trust category because there's so many of them. They're unregulated. People aren't really sure of the quality and there's very little transparency. And Momentous is the opposite. It's a high trust company in a sort of low trust category.
Yeah.
And let's talk a little bit about that.
Let me double down just for a second on that. I just saw a huge article come out that a lot of the cycling nutrition supplements, this is cycling, are all tainted with things that are banned substances because they're not tested. So if you're out there looking for, hey, I think I need to get on some omegas, I want to take some creatine, make sure that your company that you're working with, like Momentous, is NSF for Sport certified, which means what's in there is in there and it's free from sketchy things. Do not go out into Amazon and buy your supplements willy-nilly. That is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, and the other thing we love about Momentous is they're always transparent. And they are also really focused on sourcing the highest quality ingredients. Like in one example, creatine is a little bit crazy, but they always focus on Creapure, which is the highest quality creatine you can get out there. And that's just one of many examples in their products where they're, you know, looking to make sure it's always the highest quality product.
Don't take our word for it. Check it out yourself. And right now, if you go to livemomentous.com/TRS, you can use code TRS and save up to 35% on your first order.
We suck at that.
It's hard.
What do you mean we?
Well, I do, but you too. You too. You're in that. You're in it with me.
The whole time he was like Juliet, and I was like, what? Huh?
No. Can I say something else though to give you all some grace? And I think that you all know this too. Recovery is a big deal.
We suck.
No, but it's really important. And you all teach people how to recover. I have a chapter in the book called Rest and Renewal. And I think back to like making sure you nail the fundamentals. An old time coach who's a good friend of mine, you probably know him, both of you, Vern Gambetta. Vern
Legend.
Gambetta, legend. At the start of all of his recovery stuff, he said, I just hope that people don't lose sight of the fact that they need something to recover from.
Mm.
So I think a trap is getting so focused on recovery. It's like, what are you recovering from? Dan John, another legend, told me that about
Yes.
8 years ago, Dan John noticed something, and he noticed all these people coming into the gym, and they were perfect at their recovery. They had their Normatec compression boots. They were tracking their heart rate variability scores. They were taking their ice baths, which now we actually know don't help recovery, but that's well, that's actually not true. There's nuance. They help short-term recovery, not long-term adaptation. The point is, he noticed that people were crushing recovery, truly recovering like pro athletes, but none of them were actually training hard anymore. And he's like, what's going on here? So yes, recovery is really important. And everyone that's listening can be honest with themselves. Some of us are like Brad and Juliet. And we need to ask ourselves, what would it look like to be a person that actually takes recovery really seriously and look in that direction and do that a little bit more? Some people are going to be listening to this and they're going to say, wow, I am world class at recovering, but I'm not actually training very hard. Like there's nothing to really recover from here. And you need to ask yourself, what would it look like to be a little bit more like Brad and Juliet? And we can all be honest with ourselves and we can all evaluate where on that spectrum we lie and just try to nudge ourselves a little bit to look the other way.
We were just at a big longevity conference, and the thing that we observed above all else was that there were a lot of, there's a lot of fringy stuff there, first of all. But then second of all, the thing that we noticed was that it did seem like the vast majority of the people there were like focused on recovery and supplements and, tools and, all the minors that we've all talked about before. But Kelly and I were walking around and we're like, do any of these people actually like lift a heavy weight or train
Right.
hard? Or, and I mean, just by the looks of them, the answer was no, not to judge a book by its cover. I'm sure there were plenty of people there that train hard, but it was this sort of, it was just an observation we made.
Yeah, well, I would say all the CEOs and people speaking were there were giving
Yes.
it right. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. I think that's really it. There is a lot of noise in the world, and
Yeah.
it's difficult to sort of hear that signal and be like, I'm really interested and curious about this. As we sort of wrap up here, because we could just go on and on. You're so lovely to talk to about all this. And I get to call Brad whenever I just want, just whenever just nah. What has surprised you, or what has changed for you after doing this meditation?
Yeah, I think that I have become even more aware viscerally in my body that I am always going to want to achieve. I want this book to be on the New York Times bestseller list. I want to hit that 550-pound deadlift and that 600-pound deadlift. And I can do all the meditation and read every book Arthur Brooks puts out, and I'm still going to want to achieve. That's just how I'm wired. That's who I am. And I can accept that about myself, and I can find so much satisfaction and fulfillment and joy in the process, in the climbing itself. And I can realize that the only Zen on the top of the mountain is the Zen I'm going to bring up there. And both those things can be true at once. You can want to achieve. You don't have to deny that part of you. But man, you better be really honest with yourself and you better say, am I climbing the right mountain? Because the worst thing that you can do is climb the wrong mountain. But if you're climbing the right mountain and you're finding fulfillment in the process, and that process is shaping you, like the real award isn't the 600-pound deadlift or the New York Times bestselling book or the medal or the promotion. The real reward is the person that you become along the way. And that's only going to happen if you're pursuing the journey with the right people in the right mindset and the right mentality in a way that aligns with your values. And if you're doing those things, then hell yeah, like go win the Heisman Trophy, get the promotion, publish the book, like do the big thing, care, own it. It's okay.
Give a damn.
Give a damn.
One last.
Oh, no,
just
hang on.
practical-
I
wait,
just
no,
want
me.
to shout out to your partner, who is also a boss. Just want to point
Yeah.
that out.
Just as we're ending this as well, one of the things I love about this book, and I think all your books, is that you do such a great job of making the case about why we should care about excellence and pursue it in our own lives. But then it's also very practical. Like, how do we actually do this in our lives, especially amid all of the distractions and ways in which we are sort of pushed to not be excellent? And one just simple strategy that you put forward is that we should all choose one like meaningful milestone a year. And I love that as just a framework. Like, if people take nothing from this, it's to choose one meaningful milestone a year. So we've talked about the things that you're currently pursuing, but like, do you have another thing beyond what you're currently working on? Like, what's your one meaningful milestone for 2026?
That's a great question. My one meaningful, well, I guess my biggest milestone for 2026 is launching this book and doing everything I can to get it out in the world and start a conversation on reclaiming excellence and help people in their own path to that. Separate from that, honestly, it's to just continue to have so much fun coaching my kids in sports. Lila is now 3, so she's going to get to start soccer. You better bet I'm going to be a volunteer coach on the sideline of whatever excuse for soccer
Only do
happens
you
at
want her
age
to have a
3.
good experience.
So like that's it. I've already said no to plenty of big money speaking gigs that had a lot of book sales come with them because they conflict with coaching my son's basketball team. So I want to try to practice what I preach. And then in terms of my craft, this is actually the first time where I haven't had the next book idea already lined up. So I don't know what it's going to be. And I'm really looking forward to long walks in reading, in conversations, in having the freedom to just be really curious. And I think I'll find the next project, but there's also a chance the next project will find me when I'm least expecting it.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. We ask all of our guests one final question, which is help us add a book or piece of music or a show to our infinite shelf. So, what is a book that you're reading, loving, enjoying that you would recommend to our audience? It doesn't have, well, I'm sorry, it could be a show or music, but I feel like in your case, it's going to be a book.
I'm actually going to surprise you. I am going to name a musician that I think is the best working singer-songwriter right now, and his name is Jason Isbell. Um, and where to start? Probably his album from 10 years ago called Southeastern. He just put out a new album called Foxes in the Snow, and I cannot get enough of his music. I got the little Spotify Wrapped thing, and I probably had Jason Isbell in my ear more than anything else combined. So
Oh, I
I just
can't wait.
absolutely love, love, love his music, his lyrics. I think he's one of the best living writers. And I'm often left thinking, like, I could never write that as prose. And he's written that in a song, like, just insane.
Oh,
So
I
go
can't
check
wait.
out some Jason Isbell. He's excellent.
We are so on it, and I love that it's not a book and that it's a piece of music. So thank you for the surprise there. And
Brad, always.
Brad, yeah, thank
such a
you so
pleasure.
much. It's such a pleasure, and I really just can't say enough about this book and how sort of meaningful it was for me reading it at this particular time in my life. And I can't wait to get to work trying to apply some of the principles. And as always, it's just so fun to get to chat with you.
The feelings are 100% mutual. So thank you, Juliet and Kelly.
Hey, Kelly and Juliet here. If you're ready to feel strong, move freely, and have a body that's built to last for life, we've got something special for you, the Starrett System. It's our 12-week strength and lifestyle training program.
We designed it so you don't have to guess what works anymore. We blend strength, mobility, and recovery into one smart system that actually sticks. Over 12 weeks, you'll train with us and learn from our expert guests, build strength, lose the stiffness, wake up with more energy, and finally feel in control of your body again. If that sounds like your kind of move, go to thereadystate.com/system to apply. We'd love to help you show up stronger, more capable, and ready for anything life throws at you. Let's make it happen. We'll see you inside.